good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We have here people from all over the map, so it's great to see you. Today, Lilis is in her way to a conference, so she will not be able to be with us, but she sent her regards. And she also requested me to remind everyone that we're having our conference in person in Vancouver Island at Royal Roads University next year in May 8 and 9. And May next year is going to be busy because there is the ICF conference, the EMCC conference, the Oxford Brooks conference, a lot of different conferences. So we were wondering how many, we may miss some people coming to our conference because they are going to one of these other conferences. But we hope that we have a nice group. I already know several of you here are coming. So let us know. We really trying to make the lowest price that we can, so people can not let the money to be an issue for you to come. And if you have any issues, let us know. So we will also provide scholarships for people who need them. So in that way, we can support everybody who wants to join us for the conference. And today, I don't think do we have anybody new for first time? Alex, have you been here before, or is this your first time? This is your first
This is
time.
my first time, yeah.
So welcome, welcome. Do you want to say hi, introduce yourself for people who do not know you very briefly, like in a couple of sentences?
Yeah, my name's Alex Baltadano, and actually I work with Deb on some um, neurodiversity stuff and coaching, and I'm on my way almost like 20 hours away from being a certified supervisor. So I'm excited.
Great, great to have you here, Alex. I think that you are the only one who is here for first time. We want to welcome always people who are new. We want people to feel part of this community. One of our goals is to have learning opportunities. So every month we have a speaker, but we also want to create spaces for people to connect. And that's the reason why Deborah is going to have two breakout rooms today, so we can share our experiences and connect with other people. Dan, have you been, is this your first time? I want to be sure that everybody who's the first time here today, we welcome you. I think you may have been here before.
Only one time. Thank you, Damian.
Okay, great. So welcome to our session. It's your second time. So today, Deborah is going to be talking about a very interesting topic, justice-oriented coaching supervision. Deborah I know she presented at least once for the network in the past. We were there maybe twice. And she's a certified coach, a certified supervisor with the EMCC. And one of her topics of interest is neurodiversity. She presented on that and justice-oriented coaching supervision. So Deborah, welcome. Great to have you here. Anything else you want people to know about you? I'm going to.
Yes. So, hi, everyone. Amazing to be here. And you will also hear more about some of the work that Alex and I are doing together today. So I'm here with my researcher hat on. And so I just put up the slide with some of my research credentials, just knowing that I've been on this pathway longer than I might have known. So I started out a lot of this is a research-based piece, and it started when I was doing doctoral coursework. Along the way, I became a community practitioner researcher, and it's been a really interesting journey learning what that means, defining what that means for myself, and learning what that might mean in the coaching and the supervision community. So I'm here with my research hat on, and that anything you want to know about that is on that slide. Oops. But we're going to get started, and I just, want to give us a sense of what we're doing here today. We want to start. I want to start with thinking about ourselves as coach in context, meaning coach in the context of justice orientation. And we'll talk about what that means. So thinking about yourself as a coach and then thinking about yourself as a supervisor. And once we have kind of some of that stuff on the table, I want to talk about some things that I've been thinking about as a result of the research that I've been doing. So that's kind of the rough outline of what I hope to be doing here today. And I want to start us off in some breakout rooms, but I'll just say a couple of words about that. So, without thinking really too hard about how you might define some of these terms, I'm posing a question to you. Thinking about yourself as coach first, in what context are you currently engaging in coaching that serves perhaps a social justice purpose? It's something many of us do, but we don't always talk about it. So I wanted to make some space to give ourselves some permission to share. And so just give you a sense of some possible forms of justice orientation or social impact coaching. An example might be there is a humanitarian coaching network that supports coaches working in crisis, displacement, and aid contexts. There are also initiatives associated with the ICF Foundation, which I'll talk about a little bit more in detail. This is a foundation that mobilizes coaches globally for social impact and capacity building. And then there's maybe some ideas around pro bono and community-based coaching, serving nonprofits, serving equity deserving groups, and maybe people who are experiencing trauma or transition. So I want to send us into, I think we're going into triads for 5 minutes, just to give us some space. We don't always talk about this. Let's talk about the good work that we're doing in whatever social justice or this context might mean to you. Damian, do you want to go ahead? Do people
Yes, we are ready.
understand?
I don't know if you want to go to 1, 2, or you want to stay here, Deborah.
Hey, Damian, could you maybe not put me in the breakout room?
Okay, I didn't know if you want to stay or not, so
Yeah, yeah.
just in case.
Now we know.
Now, there was one that is a notebook, so I think I'm going to, not, this was not the
Yeah,
person, correct?
it didn't follow the person. It was in.
Okay, so I'm going to erase this from here.
So I got to be a bit of a. I am unmuted. Yes, I'm on camera. Cool. I got to be a bit of a fly on the wall, and I learned some things about Sunny and Alex. I was trying not to intervene, but I couldn't help with the little hearts because all of this is so close to my heart. But I'd love to just maybe just hear a couple of examples of what are we thinking of contexts as coaches in terms of what we're engaging in from a social justice perspective. Couple of examples. What kind of coaching are we doing? Sunny, go ahead. And Sunny, I know you by Deborah.
That's
Do
known me
you go
by
by
both.
Sunny?
It's
Okay,
actually Deborah, but
same.
I'm only called that in certain circles. So, um, Alex and I were talking about, I briefly sort of caught on to your definitions or your context, the three that you set out.
Mhm.
And so that's where our conversation started. And of course, there are people here like Jean-Olivier, Jonathan, Dan. We actually work in an organization that focuses on coaching and social justice. So that's a very formalized kind of way we reach out. But Alex and I were talking about the informal ways as a coach that you can promote, endorse, engage in social justice, and areas that you can have an access or entry point into those issues that I think most coaches just sort of take for granted, that we're always looking for things. And I just started coaching two people from the Obama Foundation, one in Africa and one here in the US. And there are different things that you can do and in way you can engage just in normal coaching. And I always have my antenna out for people or who are conscious in that way.
Amazing. Thank you. And so one of the things I'm hearing sort of in the meta here in that conversation with you and Alex is there's somehow opportunities are coming to you from organizations, I want to say, on the ground.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one. And then working also in the community. If
Right.
Alex has a background, as I do, in working in nonprofit organizations and sort of being involved in that, you pick up people who are really advocates, who are dedicated to justice issues, to social issues, and that forms sort of like an informal network for you, if you will, and if you like, and if you're willing, to actually penetrate. But it's all around us. I think even in CSJ, Coaching for Social Justice, it's really important to me that people realize every day you're dealing with social justice issues, whether you realize it or not.
Great. So I'll just maybe take one more person on the debrief. Um, some other way, some other definition. How are you working in a social justice coaching context? Any other thoughts that came up in conversation? Something you learned that maybe was new to you?
I can come in,
Hi,
Deborah.
Janine.
Hi, lovely to
Very
see
long
you.
time. Janine was
Yeah.
my, gosh, I forget what you call it, but you were I think my triad person.
I was your triad person. Yes, it's been a while. Damian, you might be able to share what the term is.
Try a facilitator of practice supervision.
Thank you. Yes, I was in a trio with Beth and with Brian, and both of them shared what inspired me in terms of what they do in relation to their focus in relation to social justice. And Beth sparked off a memory as well in terms of Beth's focus is trying to bring coaching to more people, make it cost effective. So there were two things that I shared as well, which is a bit different, I guess, in the coaching context in relation to I had a partner, a business partner who I trained as a coach who is Maori, and she wanted, as a consequence of the coach training that she did, she created a vision of empowering 100,000 Indigenous women, Maori Pacifica, over 10 years. And so that's what we did together. We created a coach training program which invited Maori Pacifica women, and then we had Canadian Indigenous people join us, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a way to be able to help leaders, and men started to join as well, but to be able to then have that ripple effect to support the communities that they were in. So
Thank you. Thank you. And Jonathan, gosh, I don't know what else to do other than agree with your statement. I do, what's interesting to me, in my research, this came up, and it's interesting to me that it doesn't readily come up or come to mind in this community conversation, which is the good work of the ICF Foundation. So interestingly enough, there is something called the ICF Foundation. They count hours to show coaching's impact on accelerating the UN SDG goals. So in its 2023 annual report, they call these Ignite coaching engagements, and they totaled over $1 million, almost $1.4 million US. And I also want to point out that in terms of ICF credentialing, coaches can count between 25 and 250 hours of pro bono coaching toward credentialing, depending on your level of attainment or your desired level of attainment. So what's interesting to me is that it exists in the infrastructure, and yet the question that has been sort of plaguing me is, let me just go forward. What just happened there?
We didn't get to see it yet.
Yeah, I think what happened, give me a second, Damian, because I don't see you either. I think when I came back from the room, I was no longer sharing. Is that right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so let's not send me to any more rooms.
Okay, I will not.
Thank you. And let me get back to where I was. Okay, so the question then becomes, if we're doing this coaching, how are we supporting ourselves in what comes up in coaching? So these are sort of three questions to consider. Like, if you're doing this work, in the examples, Janine, that you gave, in the example, Sunny, that you gave, like, what are the supports that you have, and what are you missing? Like, when you're walking into potentially communities and work that are maybe not familiar and maybe have some ideas, some lived experiences that you might not have or might not even know how to have those conversations. So, as you ponder those questions, I want to give you just a little snippet. May or may not be political, but nevertheless, it's hard not to touch on that in a conversation like this. So I was particularly moved. My husband is American, he's now Canadian. And I was particularly moved with all the things that happened early this year. And so I got involved with one of the first groups of folks that were laid off in the US, some US aid workers who were kind of just trying to figure out what happened to them and how to support folks, the many, many, turns out hundreds of thousands of folks like them that were going to be laid off from the US government and from starting with USAID. So there's someone who started an organization called the Grounded Idealist. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. They're doing some pro bono coaching. What was interesting to me is their first move. The first thing that they did was they gave us coaches some training, some trauma-informed training. And so that I just thought was really interesting in terms of, like, what are the supports that you might have and what supports might be missing in doing this work. And so I'm kind of walking you through my thinking and my experience and what led me to think about supervision as a way of supporting this work. So these are some questions for you to ponder. I'll maybe stop for a moment or two and take a couple of, I see some things in the chat. Let me see if I can see that. I see Jonathan. Yeah, okay, amazing. So what supports do you currently have and what are you missing? And some of this work is pretty heavy. And so what helps you hold the weight of the work? This is a question for you. I know for me, I think one of the things, like in that trauma-informed training that we had from the Grounded Idealist, one of the things that hit me the most was just knowing that early intervention is one of the biggest success indicators for folks who are experiencing trauma. And so that made me feel really good about the work that we were doing. Janine, thank you. And from Leanne, you spoke about that in your triad. Right, so supervision, right? Supervision is a really important piece of this puzzle, right? Because we're the ones who hold those reflective conversations. I love this, Leanne. You're in an ancestral and collective trauma healing training with Thomas Hubel. I really wanted to join that one. I bet you it's fabulous. I love his work. He's on my wish list. Also regulating our nervous systems. Sure. Yeah. Leanne, did you want to say a word aloud?
Oh, yeah, sorry. The training is excellent. Just doing a plug for him. It's intense.
Yeah.
You just do your own. Last time we were together for a week, we did all our trauma around gender, sexuality, and intimacy. So, because it's intimate, right? That's where a lot of us have our wounding around relationships, intimacy, sexuality, gender, race. So, us doing our own work and being able to regulate our own nervous systems so that when somebody joins us, we can hold a regulated space for them, I think is the most important thing. Like if we are regulated and then when somebody joins us, we can help their system to regulate just because the field that we're providing and we're co-creating with them. So
Yeah. So at a minimum, in the coaching sessions, the subject matter is different very often. And so how are we supporting ourselves? Thomas Hubel, incidentally, was the person that Grounded Idealist brought in. So like, it was just so amazing that they were providing this support to us before we even did our first coaching session. So thank you for that. And then we turn our lens. So far we're only talking about us, us as coaches, right? So then we turn our lens to really the reason we're here is the lens of the supervisor. So the questions here are, as we're supporting coaches who are supporting this work, what kinds of support can we offer? And again, probably some of the same, not probably, certainly some of the same things apply to us. I see Jean Elvire, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Deborah. I want to support what Leanne said because I have gone to Thomas Hubel training as well, but we are all unique. So even if you go to Thomas Hubel training, we work in group after and we share our experience. So each of us has their own experience. And what I love about what you said before is that when we talk about social justice, in one way or the other, we are admitting that there is a thread of trauma somewhere that we have to highlight. Because before COVID, nobody was kind of talking about trauma. And now people understand that who you are, you have been through a kind of trauma in your life, even if you don't want to recognize it. The only fact that you are born and that you have been through the trauma, So it is important to know that now we are talking about supervision or coaching for social justice. We, as coaches and supervisors, we need to do our own work and continue doing it before being able to support other people. I mean, we can take any course we want, but our own work is important to be able to receive and to support the person in front of us. And that is multiple ways, It is not just one way to go.
Jean-Elvire, I always feel the impact when you make a statement. Like I really hear that, and I really feel that we have to do our work, right? We have to be able to, supervision is holding a very large, important, sometimes weighty container, particularly in this arena, in this global moment. And so I'd like to, if we can, send us just with these questions. What can supervision itself offer in this specific arena? And what additional scaffolding might we need if we're thinking about this arena? These are broad questions, and they're intended to be broad. So if we can do like a 5-minute breakout, it's, triads are fine again. Just looking at this question from the lens of the supervisor, then we'll do a debrief, and then I'll kind of share with you what I found in my community research, which the cool thing I think about research is it very often reveals what we already know, which is why I want to find out what do we already know before I talk about what I found. So, Damian, can we do... Amazing. So just so I know I'm sharing my screen.
You are. That's fine. Working.
Amazing. So I just love to hear just a couple of shares of, what do we have to offer here in supervision, and what additionally might be needed in the debrief. So who would like to share?
I can.
Great, thank you.
I am amazed at how powerful it is when a collective of people, whether they know each other, it's even more astounding how remarkable it is, actually give themselves permission to slow down and not to get caught up in we have to get this done in the very Western notion of we need to do it yesterday kind of thing. Just that there's a certain amount of openness that allows us to not only be self-reflective, but also to hear other people's reflections without somehow taking them personally if there's something that we don't want to hear. That there's that, slow down and go faster. It really is true in those reflective spaces.
Yeah. There's something in the secret sauce of the space that as supervisors that we're creating. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I share?
Yeah, Jonathan.
There's time. So two things. One, sometimes I think to support people, we can't just wait for them to bring up the support that they need around this, that we need to be more explicitly inviting, people to understand that they might need support and that this is a safe place to ask for it.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I don't think I've heard the word shame mentioned yet. But when we're talking about trauma, particularly often there is shame, and part of doing the work to be able to support people is to be able to handle other people's shame and our own shame as people talk about difficult topics.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I want to just pick up maybe both points that you mentioned here. I'm going to skip way forward to the end. So a project that Alex and I are working on together, where we are providing coaching for young mothers who are, some of them are new immigrants, and many of them are in precarious housing or unhoused. And in that project, we have made, if you want to be a coach on this project, there are 2 mandatory supervision sessions that we're providing just to to make space for what comes up for the supervisors and what comes up for the coaches in that arena. So yeah, thank you for bringing that forward, Jonathan. I'll take maybe one more share and then I'm gonna move on to what we learned from the research. Anybody with a burning desire to share what came up? What do we need from supervisors? Feel free to jump in. I can more or less see you. And feel free to write in the chat. I do see.
Deborah, just a brief comment. We had a meeting at the ICF conference in San Diego the day before with some colleagues, and we talked with supervisors and some coaches, and we were talking about systemically how we are dealing with that in the background, like in the United States. Particularly, I was sharing with you yesterday how angry I was getting just listening to the news about the corruption of the government. So the anger is also another issue. That is in the system and how we normalize and validate a supervisor that working with coaches, that working with clients, everything that is in the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
I was just going to say, Deborah, I think it's just so important to work with a supervisor who can help, who can support holding the space for the coach or the supervisor themselves if they're getting supervision or supervision. Just there's so much stuff that we carry as coaches. There is so I'm just thinking of that experience that I shared earlier. You know, there was a lot of weight that I was holding, working with again a group of people that was holding a whole lot of trauma. So, and back then I did not know about supervision, and I so wish I had, because it was a lonely place. So I think supervisors have a critical role in the profession of coaching.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I want to say that this is actually how I came to be in supervision, was in supervision training. So this is how I came to Damian, this was the question that I was sitting with. And many times in research, it's the question that grabs us and won't let go of us. So I wanted to just share a little bit of my own journey through this, and what I learned and what maybe might be helpful. So all of this work started out with, at the end of my master's degree, I just wasn't finished. I was just interested. My capstone was about basically what are the models in use for coaching barriered and marginalized populations. I wasn't finished. And when I started looking at this, like, where do I'm interested in the experience of the coach, and where is the place in the process of coaching where we can do this work. And that's where I kind of landed on supervision. So long story short, 3 years of doctoral coursework, I made a bad decision during COVID and I went with an offshore university. It didn't work out well. And so eventually I pulled my project out of academia and I took it into my practice as a pro bono research project. And I learned to become this thing called a community-based researcher. That is without the support of academia. And in my case, I will now be self-publishing. And so at the time of the research, ICF defined coaching supervision as, and this is 2023, the interaction that occurs when a coach periodically brings his or her coaching work experience to a coaching supervisor in order to engage in reflective dialogue and so on and so forth. So what we did was this. We did a pilot group with a community organization that employs, not employs, but works with a bench of 400 coaches. It was in their fall 2023 cohort. What we did was we did one coaching supervision group as a case study. We worked with 4 to 6 coaches who were coaching vulnerable women specifically. So we had 6 coaches, 1 supervisor, and they had 6 group supervision meetings, and they met between January and January and June of 2024. So that became the project, like this one case study of this one supervision group. So part of what came out of this project is the idea of contrasting business as usual. And so the contrast that the definition that we created of this idea of a justice-oriented coaching context or supervision contrast to business as usual. And business as usual was a very broad term involving clients who can independently afford standard fees or whose coaching is employer-sponsored. That's what we called business as usual coaching, business as usual supervision. So we did meaning me. I did a literature review. I did have an external group supervisor. So it wasn't me, the supervisor. So then I could remain in the researcher role. The supervisor completed 6 group supervision sessions. They were not recorded, but I did post-session interviews with both the supervisor and the coaches. If, there's some nerdy stuff about the analysis and how I coded the interviews and so on. The important thing is, what is the practical application of what was the research that was done? So we looked at this supervision group. We looked at the experience of the supervisors and the supervisees. And then I started to flesh out what are the unique elements. So creating a framework and where we are here, you can see we are here. We're testing out this framework. And the full thing is going to be published. It's going to be self-published. I'm learning how to get a DOI number for myself. It's very cool, very interesting. Research is becoming democratic, as many things are. Some examples of how we're using this. I'm using this in my own course. So I teach a neuroaffirming coaching. And so Alex and I are we are the lead facilitators for that program, and we'll also be offering neuroaffirming supervision. I'm using it in community projects. So again, this project that I mentioned earlier for young mothers. We have 6 sessions per client. We have about 6 or so coaches and 2 mandatory supervision sessions for the course of this, I guess you'll call it a cohort. We're also in the process of designing a partnership specifically with a digital platform where we provide supervision for ADHD coaches. Again, if we're talking, these are ADHD coaches who are coaching university students. So again, we'll be providing some additional supervision for that. There we are. Okay, so I'm going to read a statement to you. This is basically the synthesis of what I have learned from the research. The statement is this: if the context is justice-oriented, then coaching supervision represents a high value for reflective practice and learning. So if the context is justice-oriented, supervision is a high value to the coaches. The things that are additionally needed are what comes down to three things. Intentionally, as Jonathan mentioned, intentionally creating space for courageous conversation. This is no longer about psychological safety. This is about how do we hold courageous spaces? How do we hold the space for things that you may bring, may bump up against what I bring, and how do we have those conversations? We need to intentionally create that space. We also need to, as supervisors, intentionally co-create the idea of a justice orientation to the supervision, so that we are here for all of it, but we're here holding a container that is intentionally talking about justice or justice orientation. The other thing that we found, which is something that we all know, and sometimes we struggle with this in group supervision, which is coaches come to supervision not really understanding what supervision is and how to participate in it. So what we are doing, again, to mitigate that is to create an intentional pre-orientation to the supervision, so that your supervisees are coming in knowing a little bit, at least having seen or read about what coaching supervision is, having seen it in practice. So those are the three tools that we found are very important. And so what we're saying, if we provide supervision with these three ideas, then we may benefit coaching supervision. I'm very aware of time.
Deborah, if you want, I have to teach a class in 3 minutes, so I had to go, but I can make you host, so people who can stay a few more minutes can stay and answer any questions. So I am going to, and I know that other people have meetings to go to.
Yes, go ahead.
I want to formally thank you and everybody for being here today. Next month is our last session of the month. It's going to be a celebration meeting, so it's going to be more social. I hope you can make it. And you can stay a few more minutes, so you can wrap up.